Thinking. I think now, definitely.
I think it was harder in the past.
It's not easy now either because I feel like everything's a lot more casual now.
It's probably easier now, at least in America.
I think in the past.
Now. Definitely now. Being part of like a faith or religion, it's something you have to go out of your way to do today.
I think in the times of persecution, in the early church, it was difficult in a very different way than it is now. I think one of the more difficult parts about being a Catholic in the modern world is just the complacency of culture and the fact that the majority of culture isn't, at least in American culture. Majority of people aren't really strong Catholics, so it's more just a pressure to not really care about faith, which I think makes it a more trying thing in this time.
I don't think it's different. I think it was always hard.
Yes. If you don't question your faith, you cannot ruin it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
All the time.
I think you always have to. You always have to question it, but have enough faith that you know that you're in the right faith. You're in the right religion.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
I think so.
In the sense that do I believe in a higher being keeping control of everything all at once? No. Do I believe there's something better that all human beings can aspire to? Sure. If you want to call that God, then be my guest.
Gosh, what does it mean to believe in God? Having faith in a power that is greater than yourself.
You believe that there is something greater than us.
Some greater plan.
To believe that all of this didn't just happen. That there was an ultimate beginning.
That you acknowledge that you're here because an omnipotent being chose you to be here. And that you live your life in a way that really reflects that and keeps that as its focus.
It means you have some form of religion which you follow.
Then it's something that you believe, but you also have felt at one point. If you want to go by my definition of God, it's this constant pursuit of human perfection that just can't be done.
Gives you a reason.
It helps me love people and forgive people.
It changes my goals. It changes what I want out of life. It changes how I interact with other people. It makes something to live for.
I think you think of things outside of just the material world. It becomes more than just yourself. It strikes the Catholic guilt in some people. Because you know there's someone looking over you no matter what you're doing.
I don't think it really has, in the sense that I have learned anything from God, defined how I think about morals and things like that, or what's the right or wrong thing to do.
It doesn't.
Often it doesn't. Let's be honest.
It hasn't, incredibly. But, I mean, in the way that from day to day you have to make sort of decisions based on a core sort of set of perspectives. If those perspectives are informed by a belief in God or what have you, then I guess indirectly it affects a lot of those decisions you make.
Be more thankful for your day to day. Have a day to day.
It guides your actions a lot during the day.
I'm certainly a lot more freeing and outgoing than most people tend to be.
Prudish person that always thinks they're higher above everyone else,
Little uptight.
Someone who's a little fanatical and crazy, but I don't agree with that.
I think Catholic, they think, ooh, Catholic, conservative, ooh, they're going to be against everything.
A little bit stuck up because we're Catholics, and Catholics make themselves pretty prominent, pretty loud in political scenes and just the world in general.
At least the media would portray the modern Catholic wouldn't be very positive, and it would probably be someone who doesn't actually live what they say they believe, and doesn't do a much better job living up to their supposed faith than everyone else.
Definitely.
I think fundamentally they're the same, but I think that their faith expresses itself in very different ways. And as times change, the church changes and believers change along with it. Yes.
that 80% of Catholics don't follow all the rules. And I do think that, like, my grandma, she's much more religious than I am. I don't really implement it in my life as much as my mom and my grandma.
You know, Vatican II changed everyone. Like, all of Catholicism.
Very much so. Growing up in the church in the 60s meant something different than growing up in the church in the 20s meant something that was different than growing up in the church in the 1800s or 1600s.
My generation, I guess growing up in the Middle East, was more exposed to the Western world, and that dampened religion out of my life.
I think we're in a really interesting place right now because it's long enough after Vatican II that I think people have started to come back to a more traditional view of the church and want more traditional rituals and more of a sacredness in liturgy than happened, say, during the 70s or 80s when I think the church went through a very interesting phase. So I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes this generation is people are being more conscious about learning about their faith and practicing it in a more solemn way.
I think our generation is more liberal, so it's harder for us to follow all the rules and go along with all the structure of the Catholic Church.
It's more accepting to people's individuality or their choices or like their sexual orientation.
It's less, I don't know my priest, I'm not an active member in a parish, that's not a group that I really identify with. It's, I go to church and, you know, I did CCD, that's really my relationship. And that's not something that I don't think really existed 40 years ago.
We grew up with an incredible sense of apathy towards almost everything that my mom sure as hell didn't grow up with.
A lot of Catholics know a lot, but then there's other Catholics that, you know, just say they're Catholic, they don't know anything.
Probably not that much.
Sadly, most Catholics don't know very much about being Catholic.
Most people, not very much. I've come across people where I've had to correct things they've said about Catholicism.
I don't want to say a lot of them know every rule, because I don't know every rule about being Catholic.
A minimal amount, generally.
I think that people think of the rules of Catholicism before they think of what it means to be Catholic, the meaning behind the rules.
I think the ones that choose to follow it in a proper sense know a good deal. I think the kid growing up wherever doesn't know a whole lot about it in today's world.
I think I've only recently started to really grasp the knowledge of like true Catholicism.
I think I have a pretty good understanding.
So like 60%.
Pretty well.
I'm not going to claim to know everything.
3/4. Make it a number.
A minimal to moderate amount.
I hope very little.